The Briceño administration will present its draft 2021 financial plan in the House of Representatives on Friday, despite staunch opposition from the joint unions to an imminent 10% wage cut. The Prime Minister says the reduction in salary has become necessary due to the dismal state of the country's economy. It is a crisis situation that has been brought about by excess borrowing under the previous administration. Consultations between government and the joint unions began back in February. At the time, Prime Minister John Briceño, while campaigning ahead of the municipal elections, rejected the notion of a salary cut.
That is not a proposal from the government. What we have been doing, we've said that we're going to have consultations, and we're doing consultations. And consultations means that you present the facts. These are the facts, this is in front of us now. You tell us, what are your ideas as to how we could close this gap? Fact, the UDP left us with a deficit of $500 million. It took previous governments from 1981 to 2008 for us to borrow more than $500 million. The UDP government has left us in a hole of $500 million in 1 year. We are short of over $300 million.
That gaping hole, in spite of the Prime Minister's initial position that his administration was only consulting with the unions, would eventually become a burden to be shouldered by teachers and public officers. Perhaps it was the looming March 3rd elections that prompted the PM to tone down government's stance on the salary cut discussion. 2 days after a resounding victory at the polls, however, came the announcement that government did intend to reduce the wage bill at unions' expense.
We're already engaged in an increment freeze, and so in essence, proposal number 2 would effectively be putting us in 4 increment freezes. That would yield $20 million. And also, I must make mention that the government's targeted number, where the deficit is concerned, where public officers or the wage bill is concerned, the targeted number is $80 million. And so from an increment standpoint, they're projecting a savings of around 20 million. So the proposal where salaries are concerned, of course, would tied to the remaining $60 million. But like I said, we have to carefully look at whether or not that $60 million can and should only come from wages, or if it can come from another source, whether it be some other cuts in other areas, or, as I have been saying repeatedly, perhaps an increase or identifying a possible increase in revenues where there is leakages, because at this point in time, of course, it would make absolutely no sense for us to have a discussion surrounding any new taxes as a result of the current pandemic that we're in.
When asked about the proposed salary cut, Senator Elena Smith, president of the Belize National Teachers Union, maintained that sacrifices are already being made by teachers who have to foot the bill for classroom expenses.
As teachers, we fall under a different way of working because compared to the public officers, the regular public officers. And so you would know that teachers have to provide almost everything for the classroom out of pockets. And so that is a huge concern, because if my salary is being cut by whatever percent that is, 8, 5, 7, 10, whatever it is, it would mean that as a teacher, I would have less to put into my classroom to be able to teach my students. And so we have to look at all of those things. Recall that the persons paid by government does not only include teachers and public officers. We have other groups, BDF, police, all of those who are also paid by government, and those persons would be affected.
The round of negotiations would continue for several weeks and into the Easter weekend. On Tuesday, PSU President Gerald Henry responded to the question of the unions being pressured to meet government's timeline.
I wouldn't say that there is not pressure, no, considering the fact that, like you said, there is a timeline and what can happen if it is that we don't try to right the ship for ourselves. Yeah. But again, we have to make sure that membership drives this decision, and so whatever it takes, how many times we have to go back to our membership to get a mandate, we have to do that, right? We cannot make the decisions on our own simply because we are considered the leaders of our various unions.
On Wednesday evening, Prime Minister Briceño, in a recorded statement, announced that government will proceed with a 10% salary cut, which will be presented in the 2021 budget on Friday. The unions are now left to respond as a collective on the way forward regarding the logjam. Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.